Doug Liman is back with another movie only a few months after his previous one, Locked Down, which I enjoyed and thought was actually pretty good. This one though, by all accounts, looked more or less like a complete disaster. From what I've seen, very few people have liked it and most critics have hated it. The vague idea I also had about the actual premise just seemed a little bit hokey. But this was one of those movies that looked so bad it might actually be fun. And the general idea here is that we follow a bunch of settlers on a new planet. A planet very creatively named New World, and this takes place roughly around 200 years in the future. Now the twist is that all the women are gone for some inexplicable reason. And all the men have this thing called noise. Basically all their thoughts can be heard by people around them. It's a little bit like involuntary telepathy, I guess, which makes things, let's say, complicated. Now the first twist about the women is already spoiled before you even press play, because Daisy Ridley gets stopped billing and is featured prominently on the poster and in the trailer, etc. So you know there will be at least one woman in this, so clearly not all women are gone, right? But as far as the main character is concerned, played by Tom Holland, all women are actually gone. And I'm not sure how much more I can actually say about the plot here without getting into too many spoilers. Not that there's that much to the actual plot, this is honestly pretty basic. I would say very straightforward with very few surprises and not a whole lot of branching storylines or anything like that. But here's the thing, I thought the noise telepathy thing was actually an interesting concept. And the way it was handled was actually pretty interesting too, and better than expected. I thought it would come across as completely silly and ridiculous, but it actually worked surprisingly well. And here's the other thing, as I said, I was expecting this to be a bit of a disaster. But it really wasn't. It was a surprisingly solid movie. Not great by any means, but solid. Like it had an interesting and unique idea and it ran with it. And from a technical standpoint, it was fairly well made. Doug Liman, for instance, clearly knows how to put together a movie. There was nothing about the direction, editing, visuals, or any of that bothered me much at all. And when it comes to the writing, well, the characters aren't anything special. But they're not awful, and the same could be said for the actual story. Like, it's pretty simple, there's not that much to it, but I would say it works perfectly well. And this is based on a novel by Patrick Ness, who also co-wrote this, and who has previously written A Monster Calls, which was pretty interesting too. And the other writer is apparently Christopher Ford, who has written many movies I've enjoyed, including Robot and Frank, Cop Car, Spider-Man Homecoming, and Clove Hitch Killer. So clearly we are dealing with competent writers here, in addition to a competent director and a competent cast. Because this also has Mads Mikkelsen in it, and I'm a huge fan of the man, and he does a decent job here too. And I can't complain about the pacing either, because the actual movie is only like an hour 45 minutes. And not once do I remember myself actually getting bored or impatient glancing at the time waiting for it to be over. There's just nothing here that I can point at and say that's just terrible, awful stuff. Except, well, one thing. I don't know what happened to one of the writers in the past, but he clearly has an issue with animals. Because a number of them get the short end of the stick in this, for no apparent reason. And that did stand out to me, in a bad way. It just felt completely unnecessary. But other than that, this movie is actually completely fine. It's not great. Good might even be a stretch, but it's most definitely watchable. And not terrible. And as a result, I feel like giving this something like a high 5. Boop. However, would I recommend it? Not really. I think you can pretty safely skip it. Or, don't. After all, I'm not your dad. But hey, what are your thoughts on this? Have you seen it? Did you like it? Let me know. And if you enjoyed the video, maybe give it a thumbs up or sub to the channel, because that would be fantastic.